I'll never forget the sound of my mother's voice that day, calm, almost casual, as if she were remarking on a passing cloud while shattering my entire world into jagged pieces. "I've given it all to Nathan," she said, her words slicing through the stillness of the conference room like a blade through silk. "The company, the estates, the investments, it's cleaner this way." 30 years of Grayson legacy, the empire my grandfather, Henry Grayson, had forged from a single muddy lot in 1965 slipped through my fingers in an instant, leaving nothing but the echo of her declaration. My future, my purpose, everything I'd built as chief financial officer of Grayson Properties for 15 years, gone with a flick of her pen. She sat there, Margaret Hensley, at the head of the table, her posture as unyielding as the steel towers Henry had raised, believing she'd outmaneuvered me, that her decision was final, irrevocable. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Henry had seen this betrayal coming decades ago. His secret trust, a hidden ace buried deep within the family's legal foundations, was about to turn the game upside down, and I was the one holding the cards. That Tuesday morning had dawned crisp and ordinary, the kind of day that promised routine until it didn't. I arrived at Grayson Properties early, the sleek tower rising against the city skyline, a monument to Henry's vision, a testament to his relentless drive. It had started with that single lot in 1965, a patch of dirt he'd bought with borrowed cash, and turned into the cornerstone of one of the Northeast's most respected real estate firms. For 15 years, I'd been the backbone of this place, Clara Hensley, CFO, the one who balanced the books, doubled our profits, and crafted sustainability frameworks that competitors scrambled to copy. My office overlooked the riverfront, a view I'd earned through late nights and hard-fought battles, and I loved it not just the prestige, but the purpose. My brother Nathan? He was the polished face of Grayson, shaking hands with developers over martinis, grinning in glossy business magazines, charming clients with his easy smile while I crunched the numbers that kept the machine humming. We were a team, or so I'd thought, each playing to our strengths in a delicate balance. I'd never questioned. That morning, I'd come prepared with a presentation for our quarterly family meeting, a detailed plan for Ashwood Plains, a mixed-use development blending affordable housing with community spaces, like parks and clinics. It was the kind of project Henry had lived for, one that balanced profit with purpose, a legacy I'd poured months into perfecting. I'd spent the weekend fine-tuning the financials, projecting how the affordable units would stabilize long-term revenue, while the community hubs drew families and small businesses, revitalizing a forgotten corner of the city. The numbers were solid, the vision clear, and I couldn't wait to pitch it. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. In the top floor conference room, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city Henry had helped shape his skyscrapers and neighborhoods stretching out like a living map of his dreams. I walked in, my laptop tucked under my arm, expecting the usual crowd, board members in their crisp suits, executives scribbling notes, the hum of routine business filling the space. But the room was eerily still, the silence thick and oppressive. My mother, Margaret Hensley, sat at the head of the long oak table, her posture as regal as ever, a queen presiding over her court. Her navy blazer was impeccable, her silver hair pulled into a tight chignon, every detail screaming control. Nathan lounged beside her in a tailored charcoal suit, his smirk faint but unmistakable, a predator sizing up prey. Laura Bennett, our family attorney for decades, sat next to him, her expression carefully blank, her hands folded over a stack of documents. No one else was there, no board, no team, just the three of them staring at me like I'd walked into a trap. My stomach twisted, a cold prickle running up my spine. "Clara, sit down," Margaret said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Her tone was clipped, authoritative, the same one she'd used to silence me as a child when I dared question her. I obeyed, though every instinct screamed caution. My presentation felt heavy in my hands as I set it on the table, the weight of it suddenly irrelevant. "We need to discuss some changes," she continued, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my chest tighten. Laura cleared her throat and slid a thick document toward me, her fingers lingering on the edge as if reluctant to let it go. "Your mother has made decisions regarding Grayson properties and the family assets," she said, her voice flat, professional, devoid of the warmth I'd once taken for granted. I reached for the papers, my fingers cold as I scanned the text. Phrases leaped out at me like warning flares: transfer of controlling interest out, immediate effect, succession planning, consolidated leadership structure. My pulse quickened, a drumbeat of dread pounding in my ears. "What is this?" I demanded, looking up at them, my voice sharper than I'd intended. Margaret leaned forward, her gaze unyielding, her lips a thin line. "I've transferred everything to Nathan, the business, the properties, the investments. It's simpler this way." The room seemed to tilt beneath me, the words echoing in my skull like a death knell. Simpler? How was cutting me out of the family empire my life's work simpler? I turned to Nathan, searching for some hint of guilt, some crack in his facade, but he only offered a practiced look of sympathy, the kind he'd perfected for media interviews when spinning a tough story. "Clara, be reasonable," he said, leaning in, his voice smooth as velvet. "Having two leaders creates chaos. Mother and I agree, one voice is cleaner, more efficient. I'm that voice." My voice rose before I could stop it, raw with disbelief. "Efficient? After 15 years of managing our finances? Doubling our profitability? Building the sustainability model everyone copies? You're just erasing me without a word?" Margaret's face hardened into the imperious mask. I knew too well, the one she wore when her will was law. "This isn't a democracy, Clara. I still hold the authority to decide succession, and I've made my choice. Nathan's CEO, effective immediately, with full control of all Grayson assets." I spun to Laura, desperate for a lifeline, my hands trembling as I gripped the document. "Can she do this? What about my shares? The portfolio grandfather set up for me." Laura's eyes flicked away, refusing to meet mine, her tone measured and detached. "Your mother, as the primary beneficiary of your father's estate and controlling shareholder since his death 3 years ago, has the legal right to transfer her interests as she sees fit. Your shares are minority stakes, and the portfolio's been restructured under this consolidation." Restructured? The word tasted like ash in my mouth, bitter and final. Nathan slid another document toward me, his voice dripping with false generosity. "You'll get a generous severance package, ongoing dividends. You're still family. Clara, you won't be left with nothing." I didn't touch the paper, my hands curling into fists. "So I'm fired and bought off? From my own family's company?" Margaret's tone turned final, dismissive, as if the matter were a petty annoyance she'd already moved past. "We're streamlining operations. Nathan has the presence and leadership to carry Grayson forward. The decisions made, the paperwork was filed at 9 a.m. You've got until Friday to clear your office and sign the severance deal." I stood, trembling with a fury I could barely contain, clutching their documents as if they were evidence of a crime. "You think I'll just roll over? After everything I've given this place?" Margaret waved a hand, her expression bored. "You'll calm down eventually. You always do," Nathan added, his tone infuriatingly reasonable. "We'd love you to stay on as an advisor. Your expertise is still valuable." The condescension in his voice snapped something deep inside me, a crack widening into a chasm. Advisor? A powerless title while they stripped me of everything I'd earned, everything I'd built. I walked to the door, my heels clicking against the hardwood, then paused, turning back to face them. Henry always said a family's true character shows in how they share power, not wealth. Now I see where I stand. Margaret's dismissive scoff followed me out, her voice carrying through the closing door. "She'll get over it, she always does. But this time, I wouldn't. This time, I remembered Henry's cryptic warning, spoken a decade ago as he pressed a sealed envelope into my hands during one of our quiet walks by the lake at Oakwood Manor. Open this only if they leave you powerless within the company we built together, he'd said, his eyes sharp with a knowing I hadn't understood then. That moment had arrived, and the weight of his words settled over me like armor. I stormed to my office, ignoring the curious glances of employees whispering in the halls, their voices a low hum of speculation. They knew something was up, the air buzzed with it, a tension rippling through the usually steady rhythm of Grayson Tower. I moved quickly, grabbing my personal items, a framed photo of Henry and me at my college graduation, a stack of notebooks filled with years of project notes, my external hard drive packed with financial records. I'd meticulously backed up, a habit born of caution and a quiet paranoia I'd never admitted aloud. Then I unlocked the bottom drawer with a key I kept on a separate chain, my fingers trembling as I pulled out Henry's envelope. Its edges were worn, the seal unbroken, its weight a lifeline in the chaos. I slipped it into my bag alongside the hard drive and the family documents they'd handed me, then took one last look at the space. I'd called mine for over a decade. My Ashwood Plains projections still glowed on the computer screen, the colorful charts and graphs, a stark contrast to the gray despair sinking into me. It was a project I'd fought for: affordable homes with green spaces and community centers, a vision Henry would have championed, now likely dead under Nathan's preference for luxury towers with their fat profit margins and fleeting prestige. I shut down the system, the screen fading to black, and walked out, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. The glass lobby of Grayson Tower gleamed as I passed through it. A fortress I'd once called home, now a battlefield where I'd been ambushed and left for dead. Outside, the spring air hit me, sharp and clean, a jolt against the suffocating weight of what had just happened. I climbed into my car, my hands gripping the wheel as I steadied my breathing, and dialed Thomas Carver, Henry's personal attorney for 40 years before his retirement, a man Margaret had always distrusted, keeping him sidelined from company affairs in favor of Laura's polished loyalty. "Thomas, it's Clara Hensley," I said when he picked up, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "I need your help now. It's about grandfather's private trust." A long pause stretched across the line, the faint crackle of static filling the gap. Then his voice came, heavy with understanding and a trace of weariness. "I've been expecting this call for years, Clara. Come to my office. It's time you learned what Henry really put in place." I hung up, the flicker of hope in his words cutting through the numbness, and drove toward the historic district, the city blurring past me in streaks of steel and glass. Thomas's office was a stark contrast to Grayson Tower, a converted brownstone nestled among cobblestone streets, its facade weathered but proud, all worn leather chairs and shelves groaning with legal texts, no trace of the sterile modernity my mother favored. He rose from behind a massive mahogany desk as I entered, his silver hair catching the soft light filtering through the window, his suit slightly rumpled, but his presence commanding. At 76, he still carried the sharp alertness that had made him a legend in legal circles, a man who'd outwitted corporate giants and family feuds alike. "I wish we were meeting under better circumstances," he said, extending a hand, his grip firm and steadying. I placed Henry's envelope on the desk, its faded yellow paper stark against the dark wood, and met his gaze. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" He nodded, settling back into his chair with a sigh, gesturing for me to sit. "Henry was a master at reading people, saw your mother's patterns long before he passed." "Tell me what they did." I recounted the ambush in precise detail, the empty conference room, Margaret's cold declaration, Nathan's smug takeover, Laura's careful legal framing, my voice steady but my hands clenched in my lap as the memory replayed. Thomas listened without interruption, jotting notes on a yellow legal pad, his pen scratching softly against the paper, a rhythmic counterpoint to my words. When I finished, he reached for his glasses, perched them on his nose, and opened the envelope with deliberate care, extracting several pages of dense legal text. As he read, a faint smile curved his lips, a glimmer of admiration breaking through his professional mask. Henry always had a knack for elegant solutions, he murmured, almost to himself. What does it say? I asked, leaning forward, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and anticipation. Thomas looked up, his eyes gleaming with something like pride, and slid the papers toward me. Your mother and Nathan think they've seized Grayson Properties. They're wrong. Henry split it decades ago. The operating company, Grayson Properties, is just the shell everyone sees. The public face with its contracts and projects. The real assets, the land, the buildings, the development rights are locked in Grayson Holdings Trust, an offshore entity he set up in the Cayman Islands 6 months before handing control to your father. I frowned, my mind racing to catch up. So, the company they transferred is what, empty? Thomas chuckled, a dry sound that carried years of experience. Not empty. It's got value contracts, ongoing projects, the Grayson brand, a decent chunk of cash flow. But without the assets in the trust, it's a fraction of what they believe they've won a shadow masquerading as the full empire. He turned a page toward me, pointing to a clause written in Henry's distinctive, slanted handwriting. The ink faded, but the intent sharp as ever. Here's the key. The trust has 3 beneficiaries: your father, you, and Nathan. When your father died 3 years ago, his third split evenly between you two. But control? That requires a majority vote of beneficiaries who've actively managed the company's finances for 10 consecutive years. Nathan's never touched the books, he's all charm and handshakes, schmoozing clients while you kept the gears turning. You've done it for 15, Clara. You hold the reins. A wave of emotions crashed over me: vindication, relief, and a deep, almost reverent awe at Henry's foresight. So they can't touch the real wealth? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Thomas nodded, his smile widening. Not without you. The trust leases the assets to Grayson. Properties under terms Henry set favorable, perpetual, hidden in plain sight. Audits never caught it, because it looks standard to outside ours. Leases are common in real estate. Your mother and Laura either didn't know or chose to ignore it, assuming full control stayed with the operating company. I stood, pacing the small office, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor as possibilities spun through my mind. Can I just pull the assets out from under them, take it all back? Thomas raised a cautionary hand, his tone sobering. You could, but that'd gut the company. Projects stalled, financing collapsed, hundreds of jobs lost in the fallout. Henry didn't design this to destroy, Clara, but to protect. Your leverage is their ignorance. Use it smartly, not rashly. I stopped, my CFO instincts kicking in through the haze of shock and anger, the analytical part of my brain asserting itself. Then we verify this, quietly, I said, turning to him. I need to know exactly what they can touch, and what I control: every property, every contract, every dollar. Thomas grinned, a spark of approval lighting his eyes. Spoken like Henry's granddaughter. I'll confirm the trust's status with my contacts in the Cayman Islands by tomorrow morning. What's your first move? I thought of Oakwood Manor, the sprawling family estate overlooking the lake's 60 acres of prime real estate. The historic house with its ivy-covered walls and wide verandas, where 3 generations of Graysons had grown up. Margaret treated it as her personal kingdom, her social crown jewel, a symbol of her status as much as a home. She'd planned her annual Children's Hospital Gala there for Saturday, 300 guests. The governor, a Lifetime Achievement Award in her name, months of meticulous preparation on display. Oakwood, the first said, meeting Thomas's gaze, a plan forming. It's in the trust too, isn't it? He nodded, flipping to another page. Every blade of grass, every brick. Henry included it with the commercial assets. Your mother's lived there, under trust terms for years, without realizing it. Perfect leverage, I said, a grim smile tugging at my lips. Symbolic. not operational. Threaten that, and she'll bend without me having to break the company. Thomas leaned back, his fingers steepled, a strategist's approval in his expression. Maximum impact, minimum damage. Henry would love the elegance of it. We'll draft a notice, assert your control, demand assurances, but leave room for negotiation. How far do you want to push? I sat again, the weight of the moment settling over me. Not too far, not yet. I don't want to ruin Grayson, just reclaim what's mine and protect Henry's vision. Ashwood Plains, they'll kill it for luxury condos if I don't stop them. Thomas nodded, scribbling a note. Then we move fast. I'll have confirmation by morning, and we'll send the notice Thursday. Gives them time to sweat before the gala, not enough to counterattack. By the time I left his office, the spring sun was high, casting long shadows across the historic district's brick streets. For the first time since that morning's ambush, I felt a flicker of hope, not just survival, but power, a chance to turn the tide. By Wednesday morning, Thomas had confirmation from Oceanic Trust Services in the Cayman Islands. The trust was active, my control absolute, all filings current as of the last quarter. I sat with him in his office, the trust documents spread across the table like a battle map. As he walked me through the details, 2 beneficiaries, now you and Nathan, equal shares since your father's death, he said, tapping a clause. But governance requires 10 years financial management. You're the only one who qualifies. I gripped my coffee mug, the warmth grounding me. And the assets? Everything that matters, he replied. Legacy properties from Henry's early days, the Riverfront District portfolio, Oakwood Manor, 82% of Grayson's total value. The operating company has the rest, recent acquisitions, the headquarters, current contracts. Valuable, but nothing without the trust. I nodded, my mind already racing ahead. So Margaret transferred a shell, thinking it was the whole empire. Exactly, Thomas said, and she'll realize it soon enough. We drafted a letter formal, sharp, unyielding, stating I now administered Grayson Holdings Trust, including Oakwood Manor, and any events on trust properties required my explicit authorization. Thomas sent it to Margaret and Nathan at 9 a.m., delivered by courier to Grayson Tower. The receipt signed by Laura Bennett herself. At 10:45, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan Lynn, our chief technology officer and my quiet ally within the company, a brilliant man who'd implemented our digital systems and valued merit over politics. Margaret got a package hand-delivered. She's losing it. Called Laura and Nathan to her office, plus Terrence from finance. They're pulling property records from the last 25 years, canceled the exec meeting too. Oh, and Nathan's already pivoting Ashwood Plains to luxury condos, files attached. Your move? I opened the Ashwood files Ethan had sent, my stomach twisting as I scrolled through them. My affordable housing vision, years of community meetings, careful planning, partnerships with local leaders, gutted overnight for Nathan's glitzy high-rises, all waterfront views and fat profit margins. The architectural renderings had been updated, the community centers erased, the affordable units replaced with sleek condos promising exclusive living. He'd wasted no time, probably plotting this the moment I was out, waiting for his chance to reshape Grayson in his image. My phone rang, Margaret's private number flashing on the screen like a warning siren. I took a steadying breath, steeling myself, and answered. What the hell have you done, Clara? She hissed, her voice tight with fury, barely holding together, a tremor of panic beneath the rage. I've protected Henry's legacy, I replied, keeping my tone cold and even, refusing to let her drag me into her storm. This trust, is it real? She demanded, a crack of doubt breaking through her armor. Ask Thomas Carver, I said. It's been real for 20 years. You just didn't know or didn't care to look. A sharp silence stretched between us, her breathing audible, ragged. Then she snapped, Get to Oakwood now. We fixed this as a family. Not today, Mother, I said, my voice unwavering. I'm busy administering Mummy trust. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Thomas's office. Bring Nathan and Laura if you want. Her composure frayed, her words spilling out in a rush. You wouldn't dare ruin the gala. The governor's coming, 300 guests, I'm getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. Months of work, Clara. I don't want to, I cut in, my voice steady as steel, cutting through her desperation. But as trust administrator, I need assurances. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. She tried one last jab, her tone venomous. This isn't a negotiation, Clara. You're right, I shot back, my patience snapping. It's a reality. You've got no threats left, my office is already empty, my role gone. What else can you take from me? Another silence, longer, heavier, the weight of her miscalculation sinking in. When she spoke again, her tone wavered, uncertain for the first time I could remember. Fine. Tomorrow at 10. The call ended with a crash glass shattering, her signature tantrum echoing through the line, a sound I'd heard 100 times growing up when the world didn't bend to her will. That afternoon, I met Thomas and Edward Chen, a corporate structure expert he'd brought in, at his office. We spread documents across the conference table, trust papers, asset registries from my hard drive, a detailed map of Grayson's holdings pinned to a corkboard on the wall. Edward traced property identification numbers with a meticulous finger, his voice precise. 82% of Grayson's total asset value legacy properties from Henry's early developments, the Riverfront District portfolio, Oakwood Manor, all locked in the trust. The operating company has the remaining 18%. Recent acquisitions like the downtown headquarters, properties still in early development, and the current project pipeline. I nodded, calculating mentally, the numbers aligning in my head like pieces of a puzzle. So Margaret transferred maybe a fifth of what she thinks she controls? Exactly, Edward confirmed, adjusting his glasses. The operating company's valuable brand recognition, management contracts, cash flow, but without the trust assets, it's a shadow of the full empire. Thomas leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled, considering the next step. Strategy now, how do you reveal this without burning it all down? I studied the map, my eyes settling on Oakwood Manor, its sprawling outline marked in red ink. We start with Oakwood, the first said decisively. It's not the priciest asset, but it's Margaret's pride, her social crown. She's hosting the gala there Saturday, Governor, elites, her big moment. I don't stop it, I just make her think I could. That's leverage without torching the company. Thomas smiled, a strategist's approval lighting his weathered face. Maximum impact, minimum damage. Henry would love the elegance of it. We'll draft the notice, assert your control, demand assurances, but leave room for negotiation. What do you want out of this? I sat back, the weight of the question settling over me. Not just my job back, I said slowly, my voice firming as the plan took shape. I want my CFO role restored. Equal power with Nathan, no more of his solo reign. I want Ashwood Plains saved back to affordable housing, not his luxury nonsense. And I want a merit-based succession plan, no more favoritism deciding who leads Grayson. That's what Henry would have wanted. Thomas nodded, scribbling notes. Reasonable demands, defensible ones. We'll build that into the proposal. How far do you push if they resist? Far enough to make them blink, I said. But not so far I destroy what Henry built. Grayson's bigger than this fight. We spent hours crafting the plan, a legal notice asserting my control over the trust, a detailed proposal for negotiation outlining my terms, and contingencies if they fought back options like freezing asset leases or pulling key properties if they forced my hand. By 5 p.m., we had a sequence locked-in notification sent Thursday morning, meeting scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. Resolution: before the gala Saturday night. Edward double-checked every clause, his precision a quiet comfort, while Thomas orchestrated the legal pieces with the ease of a man who'd played this game 100 times. As I left, the spring sun dipped low, casting golden streaks across the historic district's brick streets. And for the first time since that morning's ambush, I felt a flicker of control, not just survival, but power. a chance to turn the tide and reclaim what was mine. Friday morning, Thomas's conference room was a battlefield primed for war, the air thick with tension as the clock ticked toward 10 a.m. Margaret swept in first, her posture rigid, her navy suit a shield of authority, her silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Nathan trailed her, his usual confidence replaced by a wary scowl, his hands shoved into his pockets like a sulky teenager caught in a lie. Laura Bennett followed, her expression guarded, flanked by Philip Grayson, a towering corporate litigator with a reputation for winning ugly fights, his pinstripe suit and steely gaze signaling they'd come prepared for a brawl. They took their seats across from me, Thomas and Edward, the long oak table a no man's land between us, stacks of documents arranged like fortifications on either side. "This little drama is beneath you, Clara," Margaret snapped, her voice dripping with disdain, her eyes boring into me as if she could will me into submission. Thomas took the lead, his tone calm but firm, cutting through her venom. "This is about legal facts, Mrs. Hensley, not theatrics. Grayson Holdings Trust controls the assets. Clara's the sole administrator under Henry's terms. Let's focus on solutions." Philip leaned forward, placing his briefcase on the table with a deliberate thud, the sound echoing in the quiet room. "We've reviewed the trust documents," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. "They're authentic, but we question the administrative provisions, specifically the financial management clause." Edward raised an eyebrow, his skepticism subtle but cutting, his pen tapping lightly against his notepad. "Which part? The requirement of 10 years financial oversight? It's unambiguous Henry's handwriting, Henry's intent." Laura jumped in, her voice smooth as silk, trying to thread the needle. "It was meant to ensure stewardship, not exclude family from their own assets. Nathan's leadership qualifies him in spirit, if not letter." Thomas slid a highlighted page across the table, his finger jabbing at the clause. "Henry's intent is crystal clear. Control goes to those who've earned it through numbers, not charm or blood alone." Clara's logged 15 years in the financial trenches. Nathan's never touched a ledger zero qualifies him. It's ironclad. Margaret cut through the legal dance, her eyes boring into me, her patience fraying. "Enough posturing. What do you want, Clara? If this is about your job, we can renegotiate, put you back in some capacity." I met her gaze, unflinching, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside me. "It's bigger than that, Mother. I want 3 things. My CFO role restored, equal executive power with Nathan, no more of his solo reign, Ashwood Plains returned to its affordable housing plan, not his luxury nonsense, and a merit-based succession system, no more favoritism, deciding who leads Grayson. That's Henry's legacy, not your whims." Nathan bristled, his voice rising, his face flushing with indignation. "You're delusional if you think I'll share anything with you after this stunt." Philip silenced him with a hand, his eyes narrowing as he studied me. "And in return?" he asked, his tone cautious, probing. I slid my proposal forward, a single sheet summarizing my terms, my handwriting neat and deliberate. "In return, I'll authorize joint trust control. Nathan gets a vote, but not veto. And I'll greenlight the gala Saturday night, no disruption, no public mess. We keep this clean but balanced." The room fell silent, the weight of my offer sinking in, their eyes darting between the page and me. Margaret's lips thinned into a tight line, her fingers tapping the table, but she didn't speak immediately. Philip whispered to her, his voice a low murmur I couldn't catch, and after a tense pause, she nodded slightly. "We'll review this," she said, her tone careful, measured. "The gala preparations need confirmation today. Guests are arriving. Vendors are on site." "Done," I said, pulling a prepared authorization form from my folder, signing it with a flourish, and sliding it across. "Oceanic will confirm it within the hour. Gala's safe unless you push me." 2 hours of haggling followed arguments over the composition of the succession board, the precise language of the Joint Trust Administration, the timeline for reverting Ashwood Plains to my original plan. Nathan pushed back hard, his frustration boiling over, his voice sharp with resentment. This is my company now, Clara. You don't get to waltz back in and dictate terms. It's ours, I shot back, my own anger flaring, my hands gripping the table's edge. And it's Henry's legacy, not your personal playground. You want to talk dictating? You gutted Ashwood the second I was gone. Years of work trashed for your shiny condos. Philip intervened, his voice a calm anchor in the storm. Let's focus joint controls workable, but the succession metrics need clarity. Edward nodded, scribbling adjustments. We can refine them performance-based, external oversight. Keeps it fair. By noon, we had a deal. My CFO role restored with co-executive authority alongside Nathan. Ashwood Plains reverted to its affordable housing vision with a firm commitment to break ground by year's end, and a new succession plan requiring merit over blood, overseen by a board with independent experts in sustainable development. In exchange, I'd share trust administration. Nathan got a vote, but I retained final say on asset moves, and the gala went forward without a hitch. As they gathered their things, Margaret approached me, her tone a razor's edge between grudging respect and lingering accusation. Henry would have admired your cunning, Clara outsmarting us with his own tricks. It's not cunning, I said quietly, meeting her eyes. It's principle. You tried to erase me. I fought for what's right, not just for me, but for Grayson. Monday morning, I walked into Grayson Tower with a renewed sense of purpose. Henry's vintage fountain pen tucked in my jacket pocket, a talisman from his negotiation days. Its smooth weight, a quiet reminder of his faith in me. The signing ceremony was crisp and efficient, the boardroom arranged with deliberate symbolism. The Grayson logo loomed behind the head of the table, flanked by portraits of Henry and my father, their painted eyes watching over the proceedings like silent judges. Margaret, Nathan, Laura, and 2 board members sat as witnesses, while Thomas and Philip finalized the documents' leather portfolios at each place setting, the formality underscoring the moment's gravity. Margaret spun the company-wide announcement at 11 a.m.a.s., a strategic evolution in leadership, her voice polished and commanding as she addressed the packed auditorium. Nathan followed with his practiced charm, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm excited to embrace this collaborative model with Clara, our strengths position. Grayson for unprecedented success. I spoke last, stepping to the podium with a calm I hadn't felt in days, my hands steady as I gripped the edges. Grayson Properties thrives when we balance profit with purpose, I began, my voice carrying across the room. Our greatest achievements, Westside Commons, Riverfront, came from building communities, not just buildings. Ashwood Plains will continue that legacy, delivering sustainable value over quick cash. That's Henry Grayson's vision, and it's ours moving forward. The applause was genuine, a wave of relief and alignment washing through the staff, from senior execs to maintenance crews. Their nods and murmured agreements told me what Margaret hadn't realized. The company's heart aligned with me, not her unilateral power play. Later, as I settled back into my office still intact, just as I'd left it, Thomas stopped by, a weathered leather journal in his hands. Henry wanted you to have this when you were ready, he said, his note tucked inside. You're ready now. I opened it that night, the pages filled with Henry's private reflections on business, family, and legacy. An entry from 20 years ago stopped me cold. Clara asked about affordable units today, not cost, but purpose. At 12, she's already asking the right questions. She's the one who gets it. Tears pricked my eyes, a sudden ache for the man who'd seen me when no one else had, who'd trusted me to carry his torch. Months passed, and the new balance took root, a fragile but growing harmony. Nathan and I found a rhythm, his charm opening doors with clients and partners, my numbers ensuring those doors led to sustainable outcomes. We met twice weekly, our coordination sessions stiff at first, weighted with unspoken tension, but gradually easing into something functional, even productive. During one meeting, as we reviewed quarterly forecasts, Nathan set aside the projections and looked at me, his expression unguarded for once. This wasn't what I expected, he admitted, his voice low. I thought I'd run it all. No compromise. But digging into the numbers with you, I caught mistakes I'd have missed. Maybe Henry knew what he was doing with this split. I nodded, surprised by his candor. He did. We're better together than apart always were. Margaret softened too, her sharp edges dulling as she watched Grayson thrive under the new structure. Ashwood Plains broke ground 6 months later, its community vision drawing praise from the city and press families touring the site. Local leaders shaking my hand, the first foundations laid under a bright autumn sky. During a board presentation on our 5-year plan, I outlined our approach to integrating community benefits with financial returns, my slides echoing Henry's philosophy. Margaret lingered after, staring at his portrait on the wall, her voice quiet. That speech reminded me of him, frustratingly principled, always chasing purpose over profit. You thought that held us back, I observed, testing the waters. She nodded, a rare admission softening her features. I did. Took me years to see it was our strength his, and now yours. Then came Riverside, a 40-acre urban renewal project, the city's boldest yet, announced 9 months after my reinstatement. Abandoned factories and warehouses lined the waterfront, a scarred expanse begging for rebirth, and the request for proposals sought a master developer to craft a mixed-use district blending income levels, green spaces, and economic vitality. It dwarfed anything Grayson had tackled, a $2 billion undertaking, and national firms circled like sharks, flaunting their scale and experience with mega projects in Chicago and Miami. Our bid leaned on Henry's vision: community first, profit second, mixing affordable housing with market rate units, parks, and small business incubators. A plan I'd drafted with Sophie Wells, our director of community development, who'd fought beside me for Ashwood. We threw everything into it late nights, endless revisions, a pitch that sang with purpose. But Nathan had one last play, a shadow move I hadn't seen coming. Late one night, as I reviewed Riverside's financials at home, my phone rang. Ethan Lynn, his voice urgent, clipped with tension. Caught Nathan meeting a rival firm downtown, Harrington and Sons. He's offering to sabotage our bid, tank it quietly for a cut of their deal. Thinks Riverside's too big, will fail anyway. What do you want me to do? Fury hit me like a punch, hot and immediate, then settled into a cold, focused clarity. Get proof, I said. Photos, recordings, anything. I'll handle it. By dawn, Ethan sent a grainy photo. Nathan in a dimly lit bar, shaking hands with a Harrington exec, a smirk on his face. I drove to Grayson Tower, the city still asleep, and waited in his office, Riverside plans strewn across his desk like a challenge. He walked in at 6 a.m., coffee in hand, and froze when he saw me. Clara? What? Really, Nathan? I cut him off, slamming the photo down, my voice low and lethal. Selling us out? Sabotaging Riverside for a payoff? He smirked, caught but unrepentant, tossing his coffee cup into the trash. You're too noble, Clara. Riverside's a pipe dream, too big, too risky. We'd lose anyway, and I'd rather cash out than crash. I stood, my hands trembling with rage, and slammed Henry's journal onto the desk, its pages flapping open to that entry from 20 years ago. We win because of this vision, not greed. Henry built Grayson on that, and I'll die before I let you burn it down. Back out now, or I pull every trust asset, every property, every lease. You'll be CEO of nothing. Your call. He stared at me, defiance flickering in his eyes, then slumped into his chair, the fight draining out of him. Fine, he muttered. Your way. I didn't trust him fully, not yet, but the threat held, and he called off the deal with Harrington that morning, Ethan confirming it with a tapped phone log. We won Riverside 2 weeks later, our bid edging out the Nationals by a hair. The city council swayed by our community focus and proven resilience. At the groundbreaking, under a sky streaked with October clouds, Margaret spoke to the crowd developers. Officials, residents, her voice strong and clear. Grayson builds for tomorrow, not just today. Riverside's proof 3 generations of purpose over profit. Nathan clapped beside me, a grudging partner, his smirk replaced by something closer to respect. Driving home that night, I passed neighborhoods we'd shaped Westside Commons with its bustling community center. Ashwood Plains rising from the dirt, the historic district Henry had preserved decades ago. Their lights glowed against the dusk, a constellation of lives touched by his vision, now mine to carry. The legacy wasn't in the buildings or the balance sheets, it was in the courage to stand for something bigger. A lesson. Henry had left me in that